Hey guys, it's Ellie. Welcome back to Bite-Sized Book of Mormon. I'm glad to have you with me. So, if you've never been here before, this is just a podcast where I read through one chapter of the Book of Mormon each episode, and to give a little bit of context, a little bit of insight, a little bit of good times. So, stick around. So, if you remember last episode, we read Mosiah chapter 8, in which Ammon was talking to King Limhi. King Limhi talked about how his people who had gone forward to find Zarahemla failed, but they did find where the Jaredites had lived, and they found 24 plates that had their records in it, and he couldn't read it, and so he asked Ammon if he could translate it, and he said no, but I know someone who can. And then he talked about King Mosiah and seers and prophets and revelators and how cool they are, and Limhi got so excited that they could translate the records, so go back, listen to that if you haven't already. So for the next whole bunch of chapters, we're going to be reading the record of Zeniff. So if you remember the last couple chapters, Ammon, leading a group of people from Zarahemla, went to find some of their homies that left a while ago, a few generations back, to go resettle the land of Limhi Nephi, starting with Zeniff, and then his son Noah, and now we once again meet Limhi when they reconnect. So this is the record of Zeniff, and so now we see their side of the story. We've had Zarahemla's side of the story, we've gotten that record, but now we're going to see Zeniff's side of the story. So we're going to start from, I believe, when they leave Zarahemla, and then go to the quote-unquote present day, i.e. when Ammon gets there and brings his Zarahemlite bros to come help Limhi and his people out. So this is going to be super interesting because we've already seen kind of the result of the last 2+ generations of Zeniff's people, and they're not doing so hot. And so now we're going to see a little bit of why, which is so exciting. So look forward to that. But yeah, I think without further ado, we read Mosiah chapter 9. I, Zeniff, having been taught in all the language of the Nephites, and having had a knowledge of the land of Nephi, or of the land of our father's first inheritance, and having been sent as a spy among the Lamanites, that I might spy out their forces, that our army might come upon them and destroy them, but when I saw that which was good among them, I was desirous that they should not be destroyed. Zeniff talks about how he was sent as a spy among the Lamanites, so that they could, figure out their plans and attack and destroy them, but he realized that there was good among the Lamanites, and he was like, guys, I don't want to destroy these people. And so the Book of Mormon does tend to lean towards the black and white view of things, where Nephites are all good, Lamanites are all bad, or later in the Book of Mormon, believers in God are all good, and wicked people are all wicked. But that is not the case. We're at a time in the Book of Mormon where the Nephites are good, Lamanites are bad, but Zeniff sees good in the Lamanites. They're not all bad, and Zeniff, having lived among them presumably as a spy, saw that, and he had empathy for them. That's so interesting. That really tells us a lot about who Zeniff is as a person, Anyways, super interesting. Therefore I contended with my brethren in the wilderness, for I would that our ruler should make a treaty with them. But he, being an austere and a bloodthirsty man, commanded that I should be slain. But I was rescued by the shedding of much blood, for father fought against father, and brother against brother, until the greater number of our army was destroyed in the wilderness. And we returned, those of us that were spared, to the land of Zarahemla, to relate that tale to their wives and their children. And yet, I, being overzealous to inherit the land of our fathers, collected as many as were desirous to go up to possess the land, and started again on our journey into the wilderness to go up to the land. But we were smitten with famine and sore afflictions, for we were slow to remember the Lord our God. In these last few chapters, whenever bad things come upon the people of Zeniff or Noah or Limhi, that group of people, they're always immediately oh, it was because we were slow to remember God, or oh, it was because we killed a prophet, or oh, it was because we were wicked. So it's interesting because they're not self-aware enough that they fall into these unrighteous habits of forgetting God, but they're self-aware enough to reflect and realize, oh, that's why. So they're like us. We make mistakes, but we're self-aware enough to look back and see that they're mistakes and want to fix them. So it's kind of interesting because they're not all good, they're not all bad, but they acknowledge their mistakes and they understand that the punishments that they're given by God were because of these things that they did. So it's super interesting to see that kind of self-awareness that's happening. Nevertheless, after many days' wandering in the wilderness, we pitched our tents in the place where our brethren were slain, which was near to the land of our fathers. And it came to pass that I went again with 4 of my men into the city, in unto the king, that I might know of the disposition of the king, and that I might know if I might go in with my people and possess the land in peace. And I went in unto the king, and he covenanted with me that I might possess the land of Limhi Nephi and the land of Shilom. And he also commanded that his people should depart out of the land, and I and my people went into the land that we might possess it. And we began to build buildings, and to repair the walls of the city, yea, even the walls of the city of Limhi Nephi, and the city of Shilom. And we began to till the ground, yea, even with all manner of seeds, with seeds of corn, and of wheat, and of barley, and with nease, and with sheum, and with seeds of all manner of fruits, and we did begin to multiply and prosper in the land. Now it was the cunning and the craftiness of King Limhi to bring my people into bondage, that he yielded up the land that we might possess it. Yeah, I was reading that, and I was like, it is wild to me that the people that were living in Lehi Nephi just left to let these other people settle in the city. Like, what? And then, of course, it turns out it was King Limhi and his people that were living in the city, and they actually used that as leverage to get them to pay tributes that were, as we heard earlier, half of everything that they owned. So it's interesting that they were actually kind of tricked. They get to a city and they're like, hey, can we, kick you all out forever so we can settle this because we feel like it? And Lamanites are like, of course, you can come and, settle and we'll all leave and give you this whole city for yourselves. And then, actually, it's a double-edged sword and they are stuck under tributes that are unbearable. It's super interesting to see how they got bamboozled, for lack of a better word. Okay, not for lack of a better word, but for lack of a funnier word. But anyways, it's so interesting because, at first you would think, wow, this is a miracle. These people are so, kind and accommodating, and they're giving us, everything we need. But in reality, it was too good to be true. So I guess the lesson here is to watch out for things that are too good to be true, because they might just be. They might have a backhanded consequence you didn't even think about. No one would just walk up to a Lamanite king and be like, hey, could you enslave us? So it's kind of interesting to see the backstory of how they got into that enslavement, tribute-giving kind of situation that they're in when Ammon finds them. Therefore it came to pass that after we had dwelt in the land for the space of 12 years, that King Limhi began to grow uneasy, lest by any means my people should wax strong in the land, and that they could not overpower them to bring them into bondage. Now they were a lazy and an idolatrous people, therefore they were desirous to bring us into bondage, that they might glut themselves with the labours of our hands, yea, that they might feast themselves upon the flocks from our fields. Therefore it came to pass that King Limhi began to stir up his people, that they should contend with my people. Therefore there began to be wars and contentions in the land. Another thing that I just thought about this whole situation where the Nephites accidentally got put under the Lamanites' thumb, is that maybe Zeniff was trusting of the Lamanites, because the chapter starts by him being like, yeah, I was a spy among the Lamanites, and I saw good in them, and I didn't want to destroy them. So I think maybe Zeniff was not only overzealous, as he says, to settle the land of his inheritance, but also over-trusting of people that have bad intentions. Because he had lived among Lamanites, and these were a different, group of Lamanites, presumably, and he trusted them, and he shouldn't have. That might have also gone into the decision to move into Lehi Nephi when really they shouldn't have, because now they're stuck under King Limhi's thumb. For in the 13th year of my reign in the land of Nephi, away on the south of the land of Shilom, when my people were watering and feeding their flocks and tilling their lands, a numerous host of Lamanites came upon them, and began to slay them, and to take off their flocks and the corn of their fields. Yea, and it came to pass that they fled, all that were not overtaken, even into the city of Nephi, and did call upon me for protection. And it came to pass that I did arm them with bows and with arrows, and with swords, and with scimitars, and with clubs, and with slings, and with all manner of weapons which we could invent, and I and my people did go forth against the Lamanites to battle. Yea, in the strength of the Lord did we go forth to battle against the Lamanites, for I and my people did cry mightily unto the Lord, that he would deliver us out of the hands of our enemies, for we were awakened to a remembrance of the deliverance of our fathers. And God did hear our cries, and did answer our prayers, and we did go forth in his might, yea, we did go forth against the Lamanites, and in one day and a night we did slay 3,043. We did slay them even until we had driven them out of our land. So it's super interesting to see verses 16, 17, and 18, because it's literally the equation of works plus faith equals miracles. Because in verse 16 it explains how King Zeniff armed his people, gave them a bunch of weapons, and they all left to attack the Lamanites. And then in verse 17 it says that they cried mightily unto God, and they were brought to a remembrance of the deliverance of their fathers. And then God did hear their prayers, and did deliver them, and did help them beat away the Lamanites. So literally works, faith, miracles, in that order. Which is super interesting to see. Again, this is a curated piece of literature that we're reading, and so I think that Mormon made a very intentional choice here to organize the literature in this way. I don't know if he changed order of the pieces. I think he just abridged. I'm not sure, actually. But he did definitely make this part so clear. These people armed themselves, they did works, and then they remembered God, and they cried unto him, they had faith, and then their prayers were answered, and God delivered them. That was the miracle. It's so fun to see this little equation just happening, It's so clear. And I myself with mine own hands did help bury their dead. And behold, to our great sorrow and lamentation, 279 of our brethren were slain. So I just finished talking about how faith plus works equals miracles, and the miracles that these people got was that they killed 3,043 people in like 24 to 48 hours. 279 Nephites were killed. That is insane. That means that more than 10 Lamanites died per dead Nephite. So God more than answered their prayers. He let them decimate the Lamanites, which is crazy. So I think that really drives home the point that faith plus works does create miracles. While we're not trying to kill thousands of Lamanites in our lives, if we apply the faith and works principle, if we do what we can and then give the rest to God, or ask God for guidance, we'll have miracles in our lives. And again, miracles in our lives don't necessarily have to be slaughtering thousands of people, because it's 2025, but, the principle is the same, so it's very interesting to see. Again, what I'm most excited about is that we get to see the other side. As I started this episode with, I'm so excited to see the record of Zeniff and to see how the people of Limhi got to where they got by the time Ammon got to them. We've seen the ending. We've seen a little bit of their reflections on how they got there, but now we get to see what actually happened, like the events that occurred to take them to where they were when Ammon got there. Oh, this is backstory, baby. This is so exciting. We're also going to get Abinadi in these chapters. This record of Zeniff goes on until chapter 22, so we have a lot of Zeniff chapters to get through, and I'm so jazzed to read them all. I don't think you understand. So, the stand-up verse is actually going to be verse 1, which says, I, Zeniff, having been taught in all the language of the Nephites, and having had a knowledge of the land of Nephi, or of the land of our father's first inheritance, and having been sent as a spy among the Lamanites, that I might spy out their forces, that our army might come upon them and destroy them. But when I saw that which was good among them, I was desirous that they should not be destroyed. So once again, I'm going to harp on the fact that Zeniff saw good in the Lamanites. Because again, the Book of Mormon is a very black and white sort of thing. There's people of God and there's people not of God that are wicked. That's generally how it is. Because again, this is a curated piece of literature. And so to make it easier, it was, abridged in a way that made it simpler for people to understand. And that made the lessons more clear, which I really do appreciate because we're supposed to learn gospel principles from this. But I think that this little inclusion, that Zeniff saw good in the people of the Lamanites, is so important, because I think in this time, in this world of severe political polarization, which is a really bad thing, like hating people that don't believe the same political things as you, as a terrible thing. President Nelson and a lot of the other apostles, and from so many other sources, were told to be peacemakers. But how do you do that, And I think the first step to being a peacemaker, or to, disagree with grace and with love, is to see good in the quote-unquote other side. And that's what Zeniff was doing, and I feel like the Nephites found it very easy to demonize the Lamanites, because all they see from the Lamanites is when they come to attack them, when they come to kill them, when they come to enslave them. But Zeniff lived among them and saw good in them. And they still did those bad things, but they weren't 100% bad. So even if you disagree with someone morally or politically or what have you, there's still good in them. They're not 100% a demon, they're not 100% bad, and it's hard. It's so important to understand that the other side is a human being too, and that there is good in them. I think this small inclusion of Zeniff seeing good in the Lamanites can teach us that there was good in the Lamanites, and that there is good in whoever we disagree with today. Even though you might not see them that way, I think that it is an important practice to try to start seeing people that way, as human beings, and not just labeled with their identity or with their political alignment. So anyways, now that I'm off my soapbox, I think that's the end of the episode. Thank you so much for listening. I love having you around, and I'm appreciative that you enjoy listening to my ramblings enough that you keep coming back. And if this is your first episode, hello, nice to meet you. I'm glad you're here. So there's just a few links in the show notes that I want to quickly go over. First, there are 3 links that take you to different versions, digital versions of the Book of Mormon. And the Book of Mormon is great, and you should read it. Maybe read along with me in the podcast, or just read along for yourself. Either way, it is a good thing to do, and it will enrich your life. Secondly, there's a Let Me Know You Learned link, so if you want to let me know you learned, or give me feedback, or just message me about anything you want to message me about, you can reach me there. Thirdly, there's also a Support the Show link, so if you want to shoot me a few bucks, whether one time or monthly, which is apparently a thing you can do now, that's available for you as well. Finally, we're on YouTube, so if you want to subscribe to the YouTube channel super fast to find potential extra content, or just listen to the podcast there, because it gets posted there twice a week, go ahead and do that. Again, I appreciate you being here with me, and I love that I'm able to yell at you a little bit about what I find in the Book of Mormon. So anyways, I think that's all I have for you today. I'll talk to you later. Bye.